Hello and welcome to my beginner's guide to Mega Man. This tutorial is aimed towards people with little or no prior knowledge of the speedrun. And as you can see on this summary I've made here, there are quite a few things we've got to cover. If there's something in specific you'd like to know about, you can follow the timestamps down below in the video description. I made my best to keep this video short and informative, so if there's anything that I missed that you would like to know of, don't hesitate to send me a message. But enough about that, let's get on with the tutorial. So the first thing I want to cover is cancelling knockback. So with the select button we can pause the game and it cancels all horizontal movement. So usually when you take damage there's this knockback effect and you can't move for a while. If you press select as soon as you take damage, you will cancel that effect and be able to move at once. This is an essential skill that you should be prepared to use all the time during the whole run, both for unintentional and intentional damage. So always be prepared to use that select button wherever you go. As I mentioned, pausing the game stops Mega Man's horizontal movement. What it does not stop is his vertical movement. This means if I were to initiate a jump and then pause, I would end up higher when I unpause than where I am now, like that. A good use of this is when you're about to climb a ladder and you know you're gonna use another weapon at the top of the ladder. Then you could do your weapon switch during the jump, like this. Another use of this mechanic is to dodge enemies. So since I'm falling down right now, I would maybe be hit by this copter, but if he were just below me, like I'm gonna show once more here. Let's see if I can get him below me. Okay, now I certainly would get hit by him, of course. So I'm gonna hold right here just to try to get over to the right side. But when I unpause now, I'm gonna fall so fast that I'm not gonna touch neither the ledge or the robot. Like that. When you reach a ladder like this, you'll probably spend a while trying to jump up the proper alignment. There's a trick to this. If you hold down when you jump under the ladder, you will automatically align. You have to be about here, hold down and jump, and he will automatically align. It's very useful when you come to this part and many other ladders in the game to simply jump down and then jump up. So you know every time you will align perfectly and be able to get up in one jump. So boss iframes, they keep running even though you pause the game, and we can abuse that. So you can see I shot him once, wait for the iframes to run out, and then I have my next shot coming in, I just unpause and he will take damage again. So I can keep doing this for as many times as I want, and we can do this on every boss in the whole game, and we will. Screen wraps is exactly what it sounds like. It's wrapping the screen. So if I were to jump above the screen here, Mega Man would be over here, or at least the game believes he is. This means that if we were to jump over here, we could grab the ladder down here. So I'm gonna show you. I jump at the end here, and I grab the ladder down here. Zipping is a common term both in Mega Man and many other NES runs, and what it generally means is that the game tries to eject you out of a wall you're not supposed to be in. And that's exactly how it works in Mega Man as well. So if we were to put a beam like this, we wouldn't be able to fit Mega Man in here, and that's when the ejection occurs. You try to stand on the beam, and Mega Man's head will be up like in the roof. If you look to the right, you won't be ejected anywhere. But if you turn left and look to the left, the game will get crazy and just throw you away. Look at this. So that's a zip. So a quick note about these blaster screens. When you're new to the game and learning, you will take a lot of unintentional damage here because these screens, they are hard. But don't let that get you down. Just practice that knockback cancelling, tank the damage and just go fast. Don't worry about damage, you have plenty of health, just focus on the knockback cancelling and keep running. Here we will test both our knockback cancelling and our ladder alignment. So first you have to cancel the knockback and then align to the ladder and jump up. It's a great place to practice both being quick on the select button and doing stuff. The health pickup in Cutman is optional, but I do recommend picking it up until you have a good feel of how much health you need to complete the stage. And right after this we have a use for a wrap. So you can see at the bottom of the screen there is a ladder right here. So if we jump up here, we can grab that ladder, and we are gonna do so. And another thing I can mention is that if you hold jump, you can just tap the D-pad to climb down a ladder. So it's gonna look like this. Now I just tap and he drops at once. This guy here is called the Big Eye, and he's the main reason why we want to have plenty of health here. If we just go here, there's a chance he will make a small jump and jump right into us. If we're lucky, he does a big jump and we can just walk right under him. And that's the luck part of the stage we just have to deal with. So let's see what he gives us. And he was nice. But there you can see how much damage he does. And that's a lot. Screwdrivers takes 3 shots to kill, and it's better to shoot slow than to mash, because if you mash, they will eat some of the shots with iframes. So better shoot 3 slow shots than 16 fast ones. Alright, so about health drops. I would advise jumping over them, and ammo drops as well, because if you pick them up, you're slowed down by the refill and like the pickup animations. Points doesn't matter really, but jump over the health and the ammo. So this is where we killed the first screwdriver, and I usually keep this as a visual cue, the location of the first one, because when it reaches over here, then a new one will spawn up here. So you can see if I keep going here, the health drop is at the end there. You can see the health drop is where he died, about here, and when these boxes reach the end of the screen, that's when the new one spawns. So you know that's when you want to shoot. So if we go back here, here's where he died, and we keep in mind that that one spawns there. So that's how you know when to start jumping, or that's how I do it. So I just jump and shoot 3 times. And then dodge the health refill, 3 more shots on that guy, and we're onto the boss. Cutman fight is pretty straightforward. We just walk over here and drop down, and as soon as we reach the bottom, we start shooting in like a normal rhythm. We just spam shots all the time, and the only thing we keep track of is Cutman's scissors. Whenever he throws them at us, we do a jump over them. So it's gonna look like this. And then we just keep shooting. Jump over his scissors. And he's down. That's Cutman. Okay, so we're gonna stop here for a while and talk about ladder shots. So ladder shots is one of those essential skills you will have to have in your arsenal. And they work by, like if you normally shoot, you will stop like this. And to avoid that, we have to drop from the ladder, shoot, and then climb again. One way of doing this is holding the A button, because if you hold, you will drop from the ladder as soon as you release the D-pad. And by doing that, you can do this funky movement. If you keep spamming the D-pad, you will do this. And whenever you drop, you can fire a bullet. And by doing that, you can shoot and keep climbing again, and you won't stop. If you're really good at it, he barely will stop at all. You just have to keep on practicing. And every time Mega Man grabs the ladder, he will change the direction. So if I release and grab again, he will shoot to the right. If I release and grab again, he will shoot to the left. And this is how it works all the time. It's gonna be one shot to one side and one shot to the other in alternation. And if you want to neglect this or like choose where he shoots, you have to add a D-pad input, like to the left. So you kind of like wiggle. You don't have to hold the A button to drop down, you can press it, which would mean you press, you hold up, you release up, you press left, and then you press BA real quick, and then press up again, like this. I'm gonna turn on the camera and show you. See, if you're a thumb user, it will look like this, kinda. And not using, it will be this kind of slide, I guess. If you don't hold A, it would be a slide like this. And I'm a claw grip or piano grip user, so I would hold A like this and do that. Or you could do this. So when you practice this enough, you will be able to tell from the watchers here if you're doing good or not. So if we go up and down here, I can show you. You're gonna do 2 shots to the left, and the third one, he's gonna shoot, but he's never gonna hit you. That's a good way to tell. And if you're doing it really well, you can see he's gonna hit me there now, so it wasn't that good. It wasn't good enough. So we just have to keep practicing this. I'm gonna show you again. Now I'm gonna do it really, really well. You can see he doesn't even shoot. And then you can have it like, you don't have to do it that well. You can do it like that and you see he's gonna shoot, but it's not gonna hit you. The trick to jumping up to the Yoko blocks here is Mega Man's eyes. So as soon as you reach the top of the ladder here, you're gonna jump up to the platform here, and we're gonna watch Mega Man's eyes. So if we open a zoom up here, we watch Mega Man's eyes. You can see that he blinks, like he closes his eyes from time to time. So that's what we're gonna use as a visual cue. When we go up here, we're gonna do a jump at once, and then we're gonna wait, look at his eyes, he closes, and we jump up. So that's how you tell when you're supposed to jump, and you'll always get it. The magnet grab is one of those things that can be very daunting at first, but once you learn it, you can get very consistent at it, and I'm gonna do my best to help you learn it. So we're gonna break it down in 3 parts. Part 1, where we glitch the ladder. We make a special ladder grab here to eject ourselves into the roof, which forces us to zip into the wall. From there, we're gonna head to part 2, where we get into the area with the magnet beam, or the jail, as it's also called, since it's kind of scary. And once we have it, we're gonna get out this way. Part 3. Okay, so let's begin with part 1. Part 1, we need to grab the ladder at the top here. And if you remember the thing I talked about, changing the facing direction, you can see every time I re-grab the ladder, he changes the way he's facing. And that's gonna be not super important, but it's gonna be a part of this trick. So depending on which way you're facing, you might need to adjust your position or not. So the position we prefer, if you do this perfectly, is that you want to watch right. Like Mega Man wants to look at the right, he wants to look in this direction. That means that when we grab the ladder, he will change and look to the left, which is the proper way. Anyway, enough about that, let's get to the actual trick. First off, we have to press down and shoot at the same time for 1 frame. So it's gonna be really quick. It's just a tap, a flick, as fast as you can. And the issue here, most times, is that you either press for too long, like you're not supposed to hold the buttons down. You're just flicking them like really, really lightly, just a light tap. And the second issue is that it has to occur at the exact same time. And to do this, I'm gonna show you two ways. Here you go. So one way is holding your thumbs like this and sliding them down like this. So you want to slide them like that. You don't press, you don't do this. You just like slide them downwards. Let's see if I can get a good image. This is really complicated. Okay, so it's like that. Okay, so one way is doing it with both thumbs like this. It works. I guess it's preference, because I prefer to do it with one hand. So when I get to this part, I change my grip. I usually play like this, and then when I reach this area, I switch to this grip, because I have an easier time to flick it like this with one hand. So I flick like this with these two fingers, like that. And it's really consistent for me, but I know many others that prefer doing it with the thumbs. So let's unpause here. I'm gonna show you what happens. You see, like that. That's how it's supposed to look like. And when we're at this location, we have to make sure that Mega Man is facing left. Since we were looking to the right and grabbed the ladder at once, we know that we are facing to the left, and you could also see the shot, the first shot he shot. So we know that he's facing left, but just to make sure, when you're learning this, you can shoot a few extra times to the left. It doesn't matter. It's just important that you know that you're facing left. And once you know that you're facing left and you're in this position, all you have to do is press up. And that pushes you into the wall and puts you in this position, and that's end of part 1. Part 2 begins with a jump. So we're gonna jump from here. You can jump as much as you want. And then when we're at the peak of the jump, we're gonna press right. What happens when you press right is that you end up on the other side, and you can't move from here. But if you were to go here, like at the bottom, you could accidentally exit from here, because that's how we're gonna exit at the end. But for now, we want to exit up here. So at the peak of the jump, you want to press right, and you'll end up here. This is a good position. And when you're at this location, you want to press right for just a little while, so you can see Mega Man starts moving, like he does this animation where he starts moving. And then I'm gonna turn on the camera here again. So what I do, I just press so I can see him start walking. And as soon as he starts walking, I slide my thumb like this. Again, you just tap it or flick it. You don't press it, because if you do press, there's a high chance that you will end up too far in the box or the jail, and you will soft lock the game. So this is kind of scary, and that's why it's easier to just slightly slide the button rather than to tap it. So it's gonna look like this. And you see, now I did it really quickly, so he turned around. And when he's in this position, you can tiptoe into the room and get the beam, like this. And that's end of part 2. Part 3 is really simple. You press jump, and then you do the same thing down here that you did with the magnet beam. You stand on the right side, and here you don't have to be scared about jailing, so you can press for as long as you want here. So you press right to start walking, and then you go left. Sometimes you have to wiggle a few times. So I'm gonna try the thumb. Yeah, it worked. The thumb version works too. Thumb version confirmed. Okay, so I'm shooting to the left. Press up to get here. Jump to the top position. From here, slide. Like that. You see, I pressed slightly longer now, so I went slightly further in to the room. Just be careful to not press it for too long. You can tiptoe a little if you just gently tap the button. And when you get it, just press jump, nothing else. And then you wiggle out, if you want. And that's the magnet grab. So on the next screen, we're gonna switch to magnet beam for the first time. And it's gonna be a perfect situation for us to try the the pause vertical movement shenanigans. So I'm gonna show you here. As soon as I initiate the jump here, I'm gonna pause. So now my Mega Man character he's still moving upwards. I'm gonna select the magnet beam here, and when I unpause, I just have to tap up to reach the top of the ladder. It's gonna look like this. Tap. And now we're at the top. So as soon as we get up here, we just beam. So let's do it one more time. I'm gonna pause, switch to magnet, tap up, shoot to the left, and jump on this one, and we don't have to deal with the spike cars at all. So when we get to the next screen here, we wanna do a damage boost. So I'm gonna jump up into this beam intentionally to get iframes, and that's gonna allow me to jump up and shoot a beam. And then I'm gonna climb the ladder far enough to get above the beam. So it's gonna be look like this. And now I'm above the beam. So I drop down on the beam, and I still have iframes. So I'm just gonna do the same thing now. When I release from the ladder and jump and shoot, I'm gonna face the other direction, since you switch which way you're facing every time you grab the ladder. So I'm just gonna unpause here, jump and shoot. And then I grab the ladder, climbed above the beam again, and if you do this, you will always like hit the wall, and the beam will be long enough for you to drop down from the ladder. So here you just like release and jump again. And that's how you do that screen. This screen, you begin with simply shooting a beam to the left. As soon as you are done shooting with the beam to the left, you just climb upwards. Okay, let's redo it. So you shoot to the left, and then you climb up, and you will be damaged down on the beam. So you always take that damage there. You shoot to the left, you climb up, and you end up on the beam. When you reach the top here, you just press right A and B. You buffer a beam here. So you just do this, and you will always land on it, and from there you jump up. So this is the second time we're gonna face a big eye. This time he's kind of scary compared to the first time, because the first time we knew that we could take damage from him and still survive. This time it would be quite risky to walk and hope that he does a big jump. And since we have so many beams, we're gonna practice beam jumps here. This is not something that you're gonna have to do perfect, so just have fun. Just use all your beams here, okay? So it's gonna look like this. Something like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can do how many beams you want. Just go above the big guy so you keep all the health you have left here. Because the last part can be really scary, and we want as much health as possible. In the corridor, we're gonna do a buffer around here. When you reach the end of the roof here, or the line in the background here, you just press A, B, and right at the same time, and you will always end up on a beam like this. From here, you just jump up. And we don't need to do anything in particular here. We just wait for the beams and then keep going upward towards the boss. If you do have a lot of health and you're confident here, you could do some knockback cancelling here to speed up the climb slightly, but it's not at all necessary. When you enter a boss room, you can always buffer input. So I'm gonna buffer start here, and you should do it always as well. Just buffer the start to switch to Cutman, and when we unpause, we're gonna face him to the right and shoot in his face, and then pause. Like this. We wait for his iframes to run out, we unpause and pause again, and then we unpause. And that's Elec Man. In the beginning of Iceman, there are these robots which you can shoot one time in the head to kill, but they actually consist of two parts. So if you were to kill the lower bottom, it would still have a top part. And why I tell you this is because they drop 2 drops. So if you kill one of them with a headshot like this, and they do drop something, this can actually be 2 things. So if you were to skip this drop and then kill this one, did you notice how much it lagged? So let's do this one more time and hope that the second guy drops something as well. Look at this. Do you see the lag? So what I want to say is always pick up the drops. That reduces much lag. The lake walk isn't that bad. You simply put walking beams here and you use some kind of reference in the floor. Like you can use this, for example, or the penguin, or maybe the spine. Something to know that here's where the beam is gonna end. So you just jump on the next beam and you keep going here, and you see that's where I fell. So you just have to remember this pillar, maybe I make the next one. So eventually you'll know exactly when to jump. So I do it at the first pillar here, and then maybe the spine, and then maybe the penguin, and then maybe the penguin again, and you can almost get there. I had to jump in the end. But this isn't super precise. You can have different visuals here, and when you get really good at telling how long the beam is gonna be, you can even push it this far. So you don't even have to jump. But just find visuals that suits you. It's not super important. Okay, so here we're gonna perform our first buffer zip, and I'm gonna break it down into 3 parts. The first part is the buffer setup, and we're gonna start by charging a beam on this cliff, which we release around here. We could release it here if we want slightly more time, but then you have to make a jump here. You can release it anywhere here as long as it's above this point, really. So anywhere here. Don't go too far here, because then you hit the wall and the beam will automatically latch like that. But it's fine, you can do it from here, you will have plenty of time to do it. So from here, charge, jump up on the beam, and here we're gonna start looking for a visual cue. The one I'm using is this cliff over here. So as soon as this cliff is just leaving the edge of the screen here, that's the visual I use. So I'm gonna use it just to show you here, so you can find a visual that suits you. This is perfect. You have some, it's lined, so you can do a few pixels before, a few pixels after. It's not super precise, but you could watch my visual, the cliff. You could watch the health bar here with the metal bar here, or the ammo in between here. You could watch Mega Man when he's above, like, the middle of these 2 block sections. You could watch the score bar with the clouds here. There's so many things you could, like, use as a visual reference. Just pick one that you have an easy time tracking and go with it. So as soon as you reach the visual cue, you're gonna press B, A, and right at the same time. B, A, right, buffer, all the 3 buttons. You're gonna jump and shoot a beam, and it's gonna hit at the exact correct position to make a zip beam, hence a buffer. So from here, charge, walk, wait for the visual, here, all 3 buttons, and then jump up. You see this wiggle when it wiggles back. Since I'm holding right, it pushes me to the first part of the beam. That's one way of telling that you succeeded. Like, that's a great zip beam. So that's part 1. Part 2 is about how to initiate the first zip and the first wrap. So imagine us standing up here right now. We're facing to the right, so we're not zipping. So the first thing we have to do is face to the left. And you can't hold left here, you have to press left. Or I mean tap left. You can't press and hold it. You have to tap it and release it, so Mega Man zips all the way over here. And when he's over here, you can simply jump up to wrap down here where the screen transition area is, and will be on the next screen. And that's part 2. One thing I have to mention is that when you jump up on the zip beam, the beam you've done here, the beam up here is the zip beam. To like ensure success, you have to do 2 full jumps. So the jump up on this zip beam, it has to be a full jump. You have to hold A for the whole duration. So when you land on the beam and zip, you're gonna do another full jump, and this is gonna ensure the success after the wrap. Like if you do small jumps just to get up on the beam as quickly as possible, there's a chance that you won't be able to wrap. And if you can't wrap, if you jump several times and the wrap doesn't initiate, it's probably because you didn't do a proper full jump or land properly on the beam. Like Mega Man can still like be moving when he lands on the beam. You have to give him just a little bit of time so he stands on the beam. Okay, so jump. And this is gonna be part 3, where you just buffer. When the screen transition starts, you just hold right, B and A, and he'll put a beam on the right side and jump up on it. And here it's like the same thing. It's important to let the jump finish, and if you did it properly, you will just have to jump one more time and you wrap the last part. And that's end of part 3. So I'm gonna summarize it, everything in one go here. You charge a beam, you watch the visual, you buffer, you jump up, press left, jump, hold all the buttons, and one more time. And that's the buffer. One last thing I have to mention about the buffer is that if you have trouble with getting the zip beam when you buffer the inputs, it might be because you're not pressing A and B at the same time. So I'm gonna show you on the camera here. So I know that if you press A and B like this, there's a chance that your thumb is actually pressing B before A or A before B. So you have to figure out how to press them both at the exact same time if you're using a thumb. If you're a claw grip user, it's gonna be no problem. Okay, so let's go on with the airwalk. The airwalk is very much like the lake walk. You just have to find visuals for where to switch beams. The second platform here is a nice one for the first switch, and then you have the pillar here is a nice one for the second switch, and then the penguin is a nice one for the last switch over here. And from here you should be able to reach the end here. You have a few beams left. You could use them here to dodge the big guy like this. Or you could just let Faith decide. In the corridor, I usually take a damage boost here to switch to Elec. You could switch to Elec before the corridor and kill the first penguin, but the first penguin is annoying. Elec Man is cookie cutter. You just jump and shoot to match his jump. Pause, wait for the iframes, pause, wait for the iframes, and then unpause, and he's dead. First off, in Fireman stage, we're gonna do a buffer. We're gonna kill this screwdriver here, and I'm gonna show you the visual cue. Here we go. The screwdriver was located here where the drop is, and this black line over here is what we're gonna look at. So 2 pixels to the right of it and 2 pixels to the left of it is the area where you need to stand. You're looking at Mega Man's left toe here. As long as it's touching or within this area, you can do the buffer. So I'm gonna show you here. You do the buffer by pressing A and B at the same time from a standstill. Like that. You can tell that you got it from the background. The beam will be perfectly aligned with these squares. You can also like jump up on the beam to test it, of course. But I'm also gonna show you the leftmost position you can stand on. So you can see this is the black line, and now we're standing 2 pixels away from the black line. And we do the buffer, just like that. Okay, so next up, if we were just to jump up on this beam and tap left to zip, we would fly very far, all the way over here. And that's fine, really. You would just have to go back here. But if you want to control this, I'm gonna tell you 2 ways of making sure the zip is not that long. So the first one is looking to right before you initiate the zip. So if I jump up on the beam to the right and then press left, you will automatically end up here. But if you want to, you can also manually control it. As I told you earlier, you can't zip without looking left, but it's also not possible as long as you're holding left. And you can take advantage of this by holding left so you don't start the zip, and then release and press left again. So you would hold your zip over here, and then you would release to start zipping, and then when you want to stop, you would press left again. So it's like hold left, release left, press left. And that would look like this. Okay, one more try. Like that. It's just up to personal preference. When you're comfortable with the buffer setup, you can start ignoring the screwdriver. Then you could do a menu jump during this ladder. You just switch to magnet during the jump, press up at the top, and we go over here, cancel the knockback damage, and do the buffer. It is possible to do without taking damage if you're really quick about it, but that's just optional. Next up we have another buffer, but before that I'm gonna show you another buffer. And if you look at this black line here in the platforms, that's a visual cue for when you can press right A and B at the same time. So as soon as you reach that line in the ground, you just jump shoot at the same time, and you will always get up on this platform just using one beam. Like that. From here we're gonna set up our buffer, zip and wrap. And you can't start charging a beam here before taking the ammunition, because every time you grab ammunition it will cancel the current beam. So you will have to pick up the ammunition before you start charging a beam. And you want to be in all the way over here. I'm gonna try, you can't see it when I pause, but the beam is all the way over here. You can see the middle of this platform here. That's how long you want to make the beam. So when you get over here, you want to grab the ammunition and you want to charge the beam so it reaches the end of the screen, and then just for a little more so it reaches beyond the screen. So it's gonna look like that, kinda. And then you walk and charge another beam, and as soon as you reach this area, which the first beam has to reach, you just switch to the next beam. And from this beam, we're gonna do the buffer. And it's the exact same spot you're gonna watch. The area we paid attention to make the first beam long enough to, this is the visual cue I'm using. I recommend it because it's a good one, but as always, you can pick anyone you like. Here is where we're gonna do the buffer. So from here, we're just gonna press right A and B at the same time to do the buffer. And you can see Mega Man is kind of aligned with this part as well. If you want to use that, you can see the health bar here and the score bar over there. Pick and choose. Alright, so let's do it from the beginning. I'm gonna charge a beam. It's kind of short, maybe we can do it anyway. Oh, you see, that's the time issue. That's why we make it long enough. Let's make it long enough. And this time. And from here, it's the exact same thing as in Iceman stage. The exact same thing. In addition to pressing left here. I'm gonna go over it one more time. You charge a beam slightly longer than the screen here. Switch here. Do the buffer here. Press left. Jump. Remember doing full jumps all the time here. and then left. Here we're gonna do the lava sip, which can be dangerous because if you fail, you will die. But as long as you do the exact same thing every time, you will succeed. So starting off, we're gonna watch the visual cue here for the ladder setup. So this is the correct position. On my screen, it's the third ladder step, but on the stream here or the video, it's the second one. You can see it's aligned with the score and the health bar. And if I zoom in here, you can see Mega Man's head. There's a black box here. That's the one I'm watching. The same thing on his leg over here. If you're too low, it's gonna be like a white pixel over here, and the foot is gonna be like a thick black thing. You can also do 1 pixel too high, then you will have the white pixel on his foot and his head will be like just flat. So just find a visual that works for you and go with it. Here you can see his hand is, his right hand is up instead, but it's the same black box here and the black box here. So this is the correct position. Next up, we're gonna do the beams. So we're gonna do 2 beams here, and the first one is gonna be all the way to the side. If you hit the wall here, you ensure that you won't fall through the beam, which can happen sometimes if you make a short beam. Then you climb up and jump on the beam and do a second beam. This is a setup beam. We won't stand on it. We'll just use it for the setup. The only beam we're using is the first beam you placed. The second beam is just for the setup. We won't stand on it. Okay, next up, you're gonna run towards the score here. When you reach the last 2 digits, you're gonna do a full jump and press up and right. And what we're trying to do here is grab a ladder off screen. So you're gonna jump around here, and you can imagine Mega Man coming up here on the bottom of the screen, and you want to grab this ladder here. Depending on where you grab the ladder, the next screen will be different. But if you always do a full jump when you reach the 2 last digits, the next screen will always be the same. If you jump too late, you will end up grabbing this ladder and wrap down here. If you jump too early or with not using a full jump, you might just fall down on the next screen. So if you fall down and die on the next screen, your jump was not timed correctly or not a full jump. And if you grab the ladder down here, you jump too late. It is possible to adjust the jump height, but it's easier to simply do a full jump when you reach the 2 last digits. So we're gonna do that now. Then you reach this screen, and you can tell that you were correct by the area over here. If the like the black space between your hand and the wall is smaller than this, you will simply fall down and die. But if you have 2 pixels like this, it's the correct position and you will be able to see. So the zip works by doing a long beam to the right, which will be the zip you're standing on. The length is not super important, but the longer you charge, the longer you can zip. And then we do a short beam to the left, and the reason behind the left zip is simply to make sure you're facing left, since we only can zip when we're facing left. And to trigger the zip, you just tap up. So it's long zip to the left, short to the, long zip to the right, short one to the left, and then press up, and you will zip. Now, to make the timing easier, we're gonna watch the bullet. When the bullet spawns, it's gonna fly something like this, and by the time it's up here and turns down, we should be finished. Like then the right long beam will be long enough, and we can start paying attention to the bullet. We make the left beam during his way down here, and when he reach the line here, the red line, when he touches that line, that's when you press up. And when you press up, you just have to remember to jump. So if you do it this way, you will succeed every time. As soon as the bullet turns up here, you shoot to the left, and when he touches this line here, you press up, and then all you have to do is jump. Okay, so let's do it in one go here. There's the ladder setup, jump, full jump, hold up and right, charge the beam, left, up, jump. Okay, one more time. All the way to the right, charge, full jump, hold up and right, charge to the right, tap to the left, up, jump. There we go. The last part of the stage is simply switching to ice around here. Shoot a shot in between these holes in the net. So if you shoot a shot like around here, you will hit the flame pillars over here, and you can simply enter the corridor. The screwdrivers here you can also freeze, which is really handy, so you don't have to dodge them. If you do end up missing it, you can just do a slight pause, and you will dodge them. The boss fight is as with any other boss really. You use the iframes to make sure that he takes damage before unpausing, and he's done. To make the start of Bombman stage slightly easier, you can begin with a full jump and shoot to always hit that flea. The other ones you just have to memorize where to shoot them. If you don't hit them all, it's no problem, you can damage boost through them. But if they do follow you, make sure to finish them, because they can be really annoying. After this we have the bomb bombs, which you can skip with iframes. So as long as you're in the air when you take damage, you can pause to cancel the knockback and use the iframes to skip the second one. Like that. And then you just have to cancel the knockback and skip the other one. I usually switch to ice during the first damage boost to save some time. And just remember to be in the air when you take damage and cancel the knockback, and you will be fine. Coming up is a blaster part where we begin with freezing the bottom blaster, and then we jump over to the health here. And if you make a perfect jump over here and then a small jump to the second health, you can dodge the bullets from the last blaster here, but most often you will end up taking damage from this bullet, so just be prepared to damage boost through that bullet here, like that. On the next screen we're just gonna freeze one of the turrets here and keep going, and you can dodge all the shots. On the third screen here we're gonna face Snipio, so just do a full jump and shoot at the peak of the jump, and you will always freeze Snipio. Then we have more blasters and a bullet here. We just make 2 shots and freeze 3 bullets. On the third bullet, blaster, you switch to magnet and you do a walking magnet here. And you can always jump up on the ladder. Next up we have the long zip. In the next screen we have a ladder setup much like the one in Fireman stage, with small differences. I'm just gonna show you here soon. So you can see it's the exact same ladder setup as in Fire. You have the thick pixels at the ladder steps, and once you're at this position you want to make a long beam, but here you don't have a wall to hit, so the beam can be tricky. It can cause you to fall down like this. Even if you think you can land on the beam, it will just drop right through. To counter this, we make 2 beams. You start off with a really long beam all the way, and then you make another beam, a short one, just to ensure that you can land on the beam properly. When you're done with that beam, you jump up and you do a walking beam here, and then you jump up on the walking beam, and from there you wanna zip. So remember, to zip you have to look left, so you tap left once to face left, and you'll zip over here. When you're here, you just jump. Alright, so let's align to a long beam, short one, long, jump up, press left, and then up. On this screen, you want to make sure you're facing left, so we shoot a beam to the left to make sure, and then you pause with select, and you unpause with select, and you'll start zipping. Now, before we reach the door over here, you want to turn right. So if we keep zipping here, we will end up dying because we zip too far. But as long as you press right over here, somewhere here, if you press right, you will not die. In the corridor, we want to turn left, so we want to face left, because if we're facing left, we can get a little zip over here and up slightly closer to the boss. In the boss room, we buffer start button, and you can, if you want, watch Bombman's motion. You can judge if he's doing a long jump or a short jump. Then you just use the same pause trick as in any other boss. The conveyor part in Gutsman stage can be quite tricky, but with the magnet beam we can skip it all, and we don't even have to bother with the conveyor belts if we use a slingshot beam. So if you were to charge a beam and then turn around, it will get stuck in the wall. But if you make it long enough to get past the wall, you can use that as a platform. And by doing this, we can keep walking on beams all the way to the other side. Just like this. After the conveyor bar, we're gonna use another beam to go through this cliff over here, to use this as a platform and walk all the way over to the end. At the end, we're gonna take intentional damage on the last enemy here to make sure we don't fall into the spike trap. Gutsman can be a quite tricky fight. At the start of the fight, he will do a jump, and he will either do a neutral jump straight up, one to the left or one to the right. And after that, he will do another neutral jump and then throw a boulder. So knowing this, we can place a bomb that will hit him no matter where he goes. So if he would jump to the right or to the left, you would simply have to hit a bomb around here. And to hit that sweet spot, you can watch the middle of these two boulders, the crack in between here, do a full jump as soon as you reach it, and when you're at the peak of the jump, you just throw a bomb and try to land it as close to this position as possible. And after that, you just have to select pause damage. So it's gonna look something like this. Waiting for the iframes, and he's done. Freezing the big eyes in the beginning of Wily 1 is a way to conserve health, and if you have good timing, you can freeze them even if they do a low jump. But if you want to play it safe, you can wait for them to do the jump and tell if it's a high jump or a low jump, and then freeze it at the peak of the jump. From the top of this mountain, we're gonna do a buffer setup. So first off, we're gonna charge a beam, and we're gonna do a small jump and release it here just to give us some extra height. So about there is good, and then we'll charge another one, which you can change to pretty soon, like as soon as you want. The next beam we can release around here, maybe. You just have to adapt to the big guy, how he treats you, kind of. And on the third beam, we can start watching for the visual cue. The one I'm using is the edge of the mountain top here. When it goes beyond the edge of the screen, that's when I do the buffer. So it's gonna be one more pixel. That, okay, I got past it. There it is. Okay, so you could also watch Mega Man if it's pretty far, but you could watch Mega Man here. The score seems kind of tricky, but I guess it's around there. You could watch the health bar when it gets past the middle of the peak here, or use the one I'm using, which is the edge of the screen and the like top of the mountain edge. Anyway, from there you're gonna do the same as with all other buffers. You buffer A, B, and right, and you're gonna end up with the zip beam. A difference with this zip beam is that you can't zip at once. You have to stand on the beam for about a second before you tap left to initiate the zip. If you initiate the zip at once, you die. You zip into spikes for some reason. Okay, so let's do it all in one go. We do a jump here and release the beam to get some extra height. We dodge the big guy, buffer, wait, and go. If you have trouble with the spike jump here, you can do a beam to simply ignore it, like that. Be careful with doing a long beam, because if you make a long beam, you will fall down there instead. So you have to jump from the second platform, even if you make a beam like that. On the peak of this ladder, we're gonna take damage and switch to Elec. Sometimes the fleas are nice, sometimes they're not. Pick up the ammunition here or the drops, because the drops cause the screen to lag more here. You can also shoot the lightning on the way down here to be able to hit one of the fleas at the top to reduce lag even more. When we're done with the blocks, we're gonna switch to magnets on this ladder here to prepare for the next screen. We do a wrap here to the ladder at the bottom, and we hold right to dodge that bullet. We ignore all the platforms here and rely on our beams, because the beams are more trustworthy than the platforms. These magnet refills are optional, but if you want them, you can grab them. This room requires you to use beams no matter what. To make sure you do this in in total of 6 beams every time, no more than 6. You can do this kind of position jumping. It's just advice, you can do this however you want, but try to keep it to a maximum of 6 beams. So you do this kind of jump 3 times and you'll be up here. Same thing here. And we're up. Here we're gonna switch to Elec just to prepare for the yellow devil. The yellow devil fight is mostly about dodging his blocks, and then you just select pause. So simple jumping, and then when the last block touches him, you wait for the eye to appear. You don't have to pause, I'm just gonna... You see it appeared here now. It's random where it appears, it can appear up here or here. So you just have to adapt to the position he gives you. Do a jump and shoot a beam in kind of like the eye height. Wait for the beam to hit him. And once the beam hits him, you just select pause, wait for the iframes, and bam. The hardest jump in Wily 2 is the first one. And to make it easier, we're gonna start off by jumping and shooting, just like we did in Bombman stage, to hit the first enemy every time. On the way down, we're gonna shoot a second bullet to hit the third enemy. So it's gonna be up and down shots, so on the way up and then on the way down. So it's gonna look like this, up, down. And we're gonna keep doing that through whole this section, up, down shots. But that's not the hard part in the beginning here. It's the second one that spawns lower. We're not gonna try to hit him, we're just gonna damage boost through him. So be prepared with the select button here. So on the way up, down, select. Always select through that guy. Then it's just up, down, and that's the first section. Catman is simple, just shoot him, keep shooting, jump over the scissors, keep shooting. It's a refight, it's the same as the first time we saw him. And he's down. Next up, we have to dodge these screwdrivers, and we do that by simply pausing and then jumping. Here we want to grab the ammunition to refill some of our magnet, and I'm looking at these two here. I'm just jumping before I reach them to make sure I get them, but the hole is kind of like this. That's kind of what the hole looks like. So we're just gonna jump before we reach those two, and then we go down to face Cutman. We're gonna switch to scissors here, and we're gonna face him and use the select pause glitch here. To dodge this bombardment, you just wait after dropping down. So you do a neutral fall all the way down to this position, and then you wait for just a short moment, and then you go, and you will never have to worry about taking damage. If you were to take damage, just be sure to be prepared with the knockback cancel. The second part here, you can jump into this one and switch to fire and use the iframes to dodge the last bombardment. The drop down here to the clone fight is nothing special, just use the fire shield to avoid as much damage as you can. And you could shoot the blaster here. I'm gonna show you. So you shoot these guys and then you shoot the blaster like that. During the clone fight, we're gonna trigger a fire shield glitch. So to do that, we're gonna start with buffering A, B and right to shoot and hit him at the start of the fight, and it's always gonna hit him no matter what. And I'm gonna pause right afterwards, so I'm just gonna show you. You don't have to pause here, I'm just gonna do it to show you. This is the projectile right now. It's gonna travel here, and as soon as it's about to leave the screen around here, we can press fire again to shoot. And since we already have a projectile on the screen, we're gonna trigger the shield again. Like the old shield is gonna end, but we still have a projectile on the screen, and when we do that, we trigger the fire shield glitch. But just make sure to shoot again before the projectile leaves the screen, and you trigger the glitch like this, and then you can just have him walk into you while you position yourself around here. If you're standing around here in this square, you have a pretty safe position, because there are areas on the map where he always shoots. These are like triggers for him to shoot when he touches them. So he's always gonna shoot when he ends up here. And if you tap AB, 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 so you do a small jump and you shoot, small jump and you shoot, AB, 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 you're gonna be relatively safe in this position. And if you start out with the fire shield glitch and get a few hits on him without taking damage, you should be fine, even if you end up taking damage in this fight. The most important thing is to live through it and not use too much fire ammo. It's gonna look like this. You can see every time he gets close, he shoots. But as soon as he's there, I'm just gonna jump shoot him. He's dead. In Wily 3, we have one of the longest zips in the entire game, and we're gonna start the setup already from the first screen. So what we want to do here is walk over the ledge and take damage from this Susie. When we take damage, we're gonna open the menu and switch to magnet. So the important thing here is that you make sure to take damage. If you open the menu too early, you might pause the game and fall through the Susie, and you don't want that. So make sure you have taken damage before you pause the game, like this. And then we switch to magnet and head on to the next screen. Here we're gonna use the iframes to simply run through everything. And on the third screen, we're gonna shoot a beam. You want the beam to be around here. Like, you don't want it to go all the way to the wall. No, we want to have an area where we can fall down. So make it about this long. It can be slightly shorter, like it can be maybe even this short, but it doesn't matter. Like, it can be this long as well, just as long as you have an area to fall down here. The next part is to take damage from these Susies, and the reason we do that is to do 2 full jumps without getting distracted. So now we take damage from the Susies and select pause to cancel the knockback, and we take our time to do 1 full jump here and then a second full jump down here. And that is because we're setting up a beam on the next screen. So when we're triggering the screen transition, we will buffer a beam input. So it's gonna look like this. Full jump, full jump. Now I buffer B, and I jump up on this beam, and I jump again. On this screen, we're gonna pause at once. You want to make sure that you look left. You can make sure to face left even before you wrap. I did that now here. But if you're facing right, you want to make sure you're facing left, and then you pause. Now when we unpause, we're gonna start mashing start. As long as the beam is on the other screen, this is gonna work. If you bring up the menu, the beam has disappeared. So as long as there is an object like a weapon, projectile or something on the screen, you can't open the start menu, and that is why this works. If you open the weapon select menu, you were too slow, and you have to mash select here instead. It's easier than switching to another weapon or wasting magnet beam ammo. You could put another projectile on the screen, but for now you could satisfy yourself with mashing select instead of start. So when I unpause here, I'm just gonna mash start, and it's gonna look like this. When you reach the end here, you want to press right to get into the room faster. So in the boss fight, we're gonna switch to our buster, and we're gonna mash down the enemies here. We're gonna kill 3 guys with our buster, and the important thing here is health. You want to keep your health. If it gets dangerous, you have to slow down and dodge bullets. So we killed 3 guys now. We changed to Gutsman's weapon, and we're just gonna one-shot the last guys. And we accidentally got accidentally 2 dupes there. That can happen, and it's awesome if it does. In Wily 1, we're gonna do a buffer, and be careful not to shoot the middle block like this, because then we would have to do a backup. So just make sure that you're shooting at the peak of the jump, and then we can grab the refill up here. If you want to grab another refill, you can just go down and up, and it will have respawned. From here, we're gonna do the buffer setup, and what we're looking for now is this metal bar. We're gonna do exactly what we did in Fireman, in the beginning of Fireman, but we're gonna watch the right foot this time, and we want to make sure that we're standing next to or to the left of this metal bar. And since it's in the air, we have to make a beam to stand on, and we position ourselves like this. I'm gonna zoom in so you can see. Now we're actually 1 pixel away. We can have our foot on this brighter pixel of the metal bar, and then it's just like in Fireman stage, 5 pixels away, like here is the liant area. You can position yourself, and from here you simply press A and B at the same time to get the zip beam. And you have a time limit here to perform the zip or the buffer, but once you're used to this, it's so much time to like adapt and adjust. So you're just gonna be able to do it like this every time. And from here you just jump up facing left and you do the zip. Next, you want to charge a beam at the top here, drop down and release it, do another one and get over here. Here you can jump up at the peak of the ladder and press up to do a short zip. It only works if you drop all inputs and tap up, so you can't press anything else when you do it. It's gonna look like that. Coming up behind this teleporter is the refights, and that's where we're gonna do the refight skip. And I'm gonna break it down into 2 parts and explain the setup and then the mash. So starting off, we're gonna hold left when we enter the teleporter, and that is because we want to take advantage of this little zip here. You can see Mega Man is slightly off center from the teleporter, and that's because we held left. If you don't hold left during the transition, he will end up in the center of the teleporter. But we actually want to take advantage of this mini zip, so we're gonna hold left when we enter the teleporter. As soon as you can see Mega Man in this position, you can start buffering right and B. So you're gonna walk into the room and shoot the beam like this. As soon as the beam has formed, it doesn't have to be super long. It can be this short or this long. It depends on what Bomb Man does. You're gonna watch Bomb Man when you enter the room. He will do one of two things. One is that he can do a full jump like this, or he's just gonna do a short jump. And what you want to keep in mind is your position relative to his. You want to be far away from him, but not too far away. If you're too close to him, he's gonna jump away like this. And you don't want him to jump away. You want him to throw bombs, and he will keep throwing bombs as long as you're far enough away from him. So, first, hold left, buffer a beam into the room, and as soon as you have identified if he does a long or a short jump, you will jump up on your beam and do a second beam. Okay, like this. I'm gonna do it. And go. Does a long jump, and from the second beam, we're gonna start preparing. Like this is pretty fast. Since he did a full jump, I jumped up on the first beam at once and started the second one. And the next part now, when he lands here, I want to jump up on the second beam and place a third beam here. And as soon as I have placed the third beam, I'm gonna start looking at his bomb. I want to jump from this second beam and hit his bomb on the peak of its trajectory. So he's gonna throw it like this, and you want to jump into it here and take damage as high as possible. So it's gonna look something like this. This is the setup. So the last beam here is simply to increase lag, which makes the second part easier. The more lag, the easier the second part will be. So the first part is simply about setting this position up. You want to be far enough away from Bomb Man so he throws his bomb. If you're slightly further away of him, you can increase the chance of him throwing a second bomb, which can work as a backup if you're not unable to hit the trajectory high enough on the first bomb. But I'll show that scenario afterwards. But this is the main idea behind the setup. So I'm gonna show what it looks like in a short jump as well. This is what a short jump setup would look like. You start the exact same, and it's the same theory. You make beams and you try to hit the bomb as soon, like at the peak of the jump. The third beam is simply to cause more lag. It's the two first beams that are important. And when you're standing on the second beam, you just wait for the proper timing. I would say that the long jump is easier. You have more time, even though it's really fast. I would prefer the long jump, if I could choose. Anyway, I'm gonna show the long jump one more time. So when you enter the room, you just charge a beam, and just like that. So from this position, we're gonna do the second part now. So when you're learning this, it's fine to pause and just consider what happened and how high you are and where the bomb is, and take it all in and get used to it so you understand what's going on. When you're used to it, you can skip the select and go at once to the second part, which is the mash. And as long as you have beams on the screen, you can press start without opening the menu. And that causes Mega Man to take damage, not damage, but the knockback several times. And you want to keep taking knockback, pushing all the way up here. And Bomb Man's bomb is gonna go down here and explode at the ground. And if you're high enough, I think it's above this area, like this line, you will glitch into the wall here. And then if you keep spamming start, you will go up and start the wrap. So what I'm gonna do here is that I'm gonna press start like this. And you see, after the wrap is done, you die. And you're at the final boss. Like, this is a checkpoint, so it's a death warp. I'm gonna try to show what it can look like if you're not hitting the bomb at the highest peak. So you saw now I hit it kinda low. The bomb was already here when the peak was here, and I hit it kinda low. But if I start mashing here, I'm far away from Bombman, so he's gonna throw a second bomb here. Then that means I just have to preserve. So I'm gonna start mashing here and just wait for him to throw a second bomb, which will trigger the glitch. So the first bomb, I'm not gonna be high enough. Like, I need to be above here to trigger the glitch when the bomb explodes, and that's not gonna happen on the first bomb now. So I'm just gonna keep mashing and hope for the second bomb to be enough. Just like that. So that's kind of like a backup within the setup. But I also want to show what it looks like without the start button. So I'm gonna go in here, and no matter which pattern I get, I'm just gonna use the strat and see what happens. So we charge the beam, look at Bombman, his long jump, and bam. Oh, okay, I stopped mashing. Okay, let's do one more time. You have to mash until the wrap is done. Okay, so we got a short one this time. Oh, I was so used to it now, so I pressed select, but yeah, okay, you get the idea. The last boss, Wily, is kind of easy. As long as you have a health tank of ammo, you don't have to pick up the extra ammo here. If you want to, you could even go lower than health if you do a fire shield glitch. You would just jump up, shoot him, and then shoot again before the projectile leaves the screen, like that. And you can easily kill him with having ammo to spare. And the way to beat this guy is simply to jump up and shoot all the time. Take damage, jump and shoot, jump and shoot, jump and shoot, and just keep doing this, and he's gonna go down every time. Alright, we have arrived at the end of the tutorial, and this is the extra session where I'm quickly going to mention a few key elements. The select pausing is one of the things you just can't get enough of. You practice it throughout the whole run for knockback cancelling and for those quick boss fights. And there's gonna be a lot of shenanigans you'll run into, and just having that muscle memory for a great select pause reaction, it will save you so many times. Beam utilization is another thing I want to mention. The more you play the game, the better you will become at using the beam. And with that, beam jumps will come more and more naturally. And with a beam jump, I mean when you jump and place a beam in one motion. So you jump, place the beam, and then land on the beam you just placed. This is a great skill, and it's really fun to use, and it's something you can build on and do a lot of cool things with. So keep at it and never give up. I also want to mention the two most time-consuming tricks to learn, and it's the magnet grab and the refight skip. Don't let those two tricks get you down, because they are very difficult, and it will take a lot of time to get good at them. So if you have any trouble with these tricks, or any other for that matter, there's so many great people you can ask for help in the Mega Man community, and everyone will love to help you out. So don't be afraid to ask, or absolutely don't be ashamed to, but because it's no problem at all. Like also, there's an alternative to the magnet grab I thought I could mention, and it's just going Gutsman first before Cutman. In that way, you would have Gutsman's weapon for the Elec Man stage, where you can skip the magnet grab trick and just go the normal way and grab the magnet beam. You would also have Gutsman's weapon for the Cutman fight. The downside, though, which causes this to cost more time, is that you would have to fight Gutsman with Buster, and you would have to jump on all the conveyors. But that's an alternative if you wish to do runs maybe before you got the magnet grab down. There's no shame in doing that. And that's it. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and I wish you the best of luck with your practice and your future attempts.